The dinar awakens, when forgotten currencies start to roar. Welcome to Dinar Current. Let's begin. Picture this. The invisible architects of global finance, the central banks, once untouchable symbols of order and power, are beginning to tremble. Their algorithms misfire. Their policies wobble. And deep inside those silent vaults, whispers begin to rise. Out of this global confusion, two long dismissed currencies start to stir, the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong. Once laughed off as relics of broken economies, they now hover at the edge of something extraordinary. This isn't a fairy tale about money. This is a story about power, politics, and possibility colliding at once. When giants lose balance. For decades, central banks have acted as the world's stabilizers, managing inflation, interest rates, and money supply. But in 2025, that control began to fracture. Rising debt, digital currency disruption, energy conflicts, and inflationary pressure pushed them into corners they'd never been in before. And when central banks panic, currencies stop behaving like tools. They start behaving like wild creatures. Some collapse. Others, like the dinar and the dong, start fighting back. The Iraqi dinar, a sleeping titan. Once, the Iraqi dinar was a proud symbol of strength. Before wars, sanctions, and political decay, it carried prestige across the Middle East. But decades of conflict shattered that legacy. Today, $1 equals roughly 1,300 to 1,400 dinar, a weak, tightly managed rate. Yet beneath that fragile surface lies something massive, Iraq's oil wealth. Iraq owns around 145 billion barrels of proven crude reserves, among the largest in the world. Oil makes up over 90% of the nation's revenue. New contracts and foreign partnerships hint that Iraq wants to rebuild its energy infrastructure and expand exports. If Iraq succeeds, if oil flows efficiently and corruption shrinks, the dinar's foundation strengthens. Because true currency power doesn't come from politics. It comes from resources, production, and trust. Whispers of revaluation. In the background, quiet rumors keep circulating. Talks about redenomination, digital dinar trials, zero removal policies. None of this is confirmed. But even whispers have power. Speculative investors call it the RV revaluation. Economists call it dangerous fantasy. Yet every major shift in history begins with a rumor that sounded impossible, until it wasn't. If a revaluation were ever real, it would trigger shockwaves across global finance. Overnight, ordinary holders could see their net worth multiply. But that same event could spark liquidity crises, currency flight, and trust collapses across emerging markets. Central banks fear that kind of chaos more than inflation itself. Because when they lose control of expectations, they lose control, period. Why the dinar matters beyond Iraq. The Iraqi dinar isn't just a national currency, it's a global test. If Iraq revalues and survives, it would challenge the unspoken rules of the international financial system. It would prove that even small economies can rewrite their own destiny. But the risks are real. Few international banks even deal in dinar. Conversion remains limited. Scams and false promises flood online spaces. Iraq's political instability and infrastructure decay remain serious barriers. Still, despite these warnings, one truth remains. Markets run on belief. And when belief shifts, money follows. The Vietnamese Dong, the silent force. Now shift east, to Vietnam. The Vietnamese Dong may sound humble, but it powers one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. Factories in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City produce everything from smartphones to sneakers. Global giants, Apple, Samsung, Nike, all rely on Vietnamese efficiency. Economists call it the second China. Here's the irony. The stronger Vietnam grows, the weaker it keeps its currency. A low dong makes exports cheaper. A $100 American product can be made for $60 in Vietnam. That's how the nation built its export empire, from $96 billion in 2011 to over $370 billion today. To maintain that edge, the State Bank of Vietnam, SBV, tightly controls the exchange rate, keeping it near 25,000 dong per dollar. But global tides are shifting, and that control is under strain. The currency tightrope. Defending the dong's stability costs billions. Every time inflation rises or the dollar strengthens, Vietnam must dip into its reserves to keep the peg steady. It's like holding back a flood with sandbags, effective, until the water gets too high. Behind the scenes, SBV uses swaps, contracts, and policy tweaks to hide pressure. But economists know, no peg lasts forever. And when it breaks, it's sudden. Global investors would panic. Asian export markets would quake. Even a small adjustment could reshape trade flows from Bangkok to Seoul. The coming storm. So the question is not if, but when. When does the pressure exceed the cost? When does the illusion of control give way to market reality? Maybe the trigger is a global slowdown, shrinking Vietnam's export income. Maybe it's capital flight, as investors chase higher yields in the US. Maybe it's domestic inflation, forcing the central bank to choose between cheap exports and public pain. Whichever it is, once the peg breaks, the flood begins. And one nation's adjustment could ignite an entire regional chain reaction. The domino effect. Currencies don't move alone. They move together, linked through trade, debt, and psychology. If Iraq or Vietnam changes course, others will follow. A small revaluation here, a sudden devaluation there, and suddenly, the global financial web begins to shake. Traders reposition. Central banks scramble. Confidence cracks. That's when the illusion ends, and the real market begins. The hidden battle for control. Every currency peg, every stable exchange rate, is built on trust. Trust that tomorrow's value will match today's. But when that trust erodes, no announcement can stop the collapse. In quiet conference rooms from Baghdad to Hanoi to Washington, central bankers are fighting invisible wars, defending reserves, adjusting policies, and praying that no one blinks first. Because once one country loses control, the rest begin to fall. Conclusion. The turning point. The dinar and the dong, two currencies that most of the world ignores, may soon stand at the center of a historic shift. If either one breaks its chains, it won't just reshape local economies. It will test the entire global order. This isn't just about money. It's about belief, timing, and awareness. Those who watch closely, who prepare early, won't need permission from the system. They'll simply be ready when it changes. Because the next financial revolution won't come with a warning. It'll come quietly, then all at once. This is Dinar Current, and the storm has only just begun.